Hi Gav, welcome back. How are you doing?
All good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. I've been fishing around the internet. I'm going to look for things, and it's the usual thing. You find 10,000 videos, and only one of them's any good. It's always the case. It's always the case, isn't it?
What type of videos are you looking for?
Just all sort. I think that's the well. It's the normal web, not the dark web. Come on,
Okay.
keep it clean. But
That's for the other. That's the other show. We'll start.
we'll start that show as well another time. I tell you what, the most searched thing is on the internet when it comes to health and fitness:
Right.
abdominals,
Abs.
abs.
Jesus. Okay.
How to get your abs, and you get all these little motivational. They're made in the kitchen. Well, I must have the wrong things in the drawers then, because I've never found a set of abs in my knife drawer. And so I think that's the most common thing. I come a little bit different to you from probably teaching classes. These fitness events where the most popular class for years and years and years is anything with the word abs in it.
Yeah.
Legs, bums, tums, packed. Whenever you do anything with the word abs in it, everyone turns up because they think there's going to be something that you're going to do. I don't know if it's surgery on the way in or the way out, whether it's, I don't know. They want me to give them a solution to drink and then all of a sudden they can pick what they like. I don't know. But it's the most common thing that you find on the internet. I think that even comes above weight loss.
Yeah.
Actually comes above that. So on the searches that I've done anyway. So I think that's why this is the most going to be like a heavily listened to episode, because they're going to sit reading and watching and listening to 10,000 things. So now might be the time for us to just attack it straight on.
Yeah. Okay, doke. So, in terms of abs, I think people have to realize that. Are we talking six pack or just like belly fat? Or are we just going into it all?
I think it's going to be both, because I find that the problem is that people don't even dream about the six pack until they start reducing the belly fat. I think it's kind of a chicken or an egg scenario. What comes first? Because people think that they can go from having high amounts of body fat around the mid waist to all of a sudden on the front of a magazine. And it's just that realism of that and how it comes there. So it's probably a bit of both. I mean, to cover both, probably.
So if we look at the types of fat as well, we need to think about as well, because if you have to look at subcutaneous fat, which is basically the fat you can pinch.
Yeah.
So if you've ever had calipers done, you can pinch the fat around your belly button and measure how many millimeters come off there. And you've got a direct, like a direct number on if the body fat's coming down from that side type of thing.
Yeah.
Then you've also got visceral fat, which is the stuff you can't pinch. So that's the stuff that's in and around the organs and that. So what we typically see is like you see males with big beer bellies and it's quite hard and dense. So that's the typical visceral fat look, where it's like a big beach ball, basically. And you can't, and if you try and actually pinch the subcutaneous fat when there's high amounts of visceral fat in the abs or around the organs on the inside of the belly, it's quite hard and dense to pinch. So it's not until you start releasing the visceral fat off that you can start pinching the subcutaneous fat on the outside a little bit better. And people go, oh my God, I'm putting body fat on. When in essence, it's just you're releasing visceral fat on the inside and you're able to pinch the subcutaneous fat. So there's a difference between the two. Mm-hmm. The one that's quite, it's like correlated to unbeneficial. Is that a good way to say it? But it's a bad way to have is visceral fat, because it's more linked with a lot of metabolic diseases and things. So ideally you want to get that as low as you can. And obviously exercise is a great way to get rid of it. Obviously your diet as well, as like all things. But visceral fat is the one you want to keep as low as possible. Really,
I think that's as well. One of these, you see these on these body fat machines as well. Like a lot of them now will give you visceral fat scores, and people don't really know what that is. So it's good that we've kind of define those from the onset. But that's where you get these people that are very lean, and that's the wrong way of saying it. They look thin, they appear thin, so they don't necessarily have the Homer Simpson look that we just described. Yet they've still got this visceral fat building up, and so their risk of heart disease and diabetes and all of the things that come with it is still apparent. It's still there. So it's not necessarily you've got to be visually obese, to put it that way, or morbidly obese, even to walking down the street and really struggling out of breath to have all these issues. So I think that really anyone listening to this, whether they're at the beginning of exercise program, they're just starting out, or they've trained like a bodybuilder for 20 years, it's still something that you know, there's always the inside, the internal health, and the external health is probably another way of putting it.
Yeah. So, and a lot of things, like, especially with what's going on in the world right now, is like, just because people don't sort of look or they look healthy on the outside doesn't mean they're healthy on the inside, type of thing.
Yeah.
So this is where people need, obviously, ideally, if they're getting their blood work done and things like that, that's going to help as well. Especially what's going on today, just to make sure things are in the right health markers. But when we're looking at like you mentioned, the scanners that can actually see where what fat is going where it's more located, like the visceral fat. I was using it when I was at the gym. We had an InBody 770, which is pretty good. It's one of the top machines to use. But again, like everything else, you need to be able to, if you're going to test body fat, it has to be done the same every time. So you ideally need to be fasted under the same circumstances on the same day, on the same time. So it's much more accurate. Whereas you get people just jumping on whenever they want. They've just eaten something or just had something to drink, and it's not an accurate test. So even those things need to be done correctly, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But
definitely.
Yeah. So it's like but looking at the visceral fat type of thing is where it's more common in obviously males, and I think there's some correlations with like stress and stress receptors around the abdominal region, and it's more linked with visceral fat potentially. But all factors being equal, if you're still overeating, right, it's still going to mean that you're going to put body fat there. But so it's getting your diet in check to enable yourself to drop that. And then if you flip that switch in terms of when people store body fat there, you can typically see that, not all by all means, but in general, when females typically go through menopause, so after they go through menopause, they typically start to store body fat in different regions. So it's typically around the midriff, and that's when that visceral fat becomes more apparent for them as well.
Definitely. I think that for the people listening, everyone's going to be at different stages, and we always talk about this journey. We're all on different journeys and we're at different stages. So I think to give it a bit of structure, if we start with what do you do for a general person starting off, and then we move it into, okay, now you're exercising a bit more. Okay, you might not have the most, detailed program, but at least you're getting in, daily steps, doing whatever you need to do. And we'll define that in a second. You then almost move to the second person of a regular exerciser. It's more of a habit. So what are the things you need to do at that stage? Because then the third person would be the elite level, we'll call it, the people that want to follow strict macros. They want to make sure that their program is spot on. They've got a coach. They're interested in blood work, which we just mentioned there as well. So if we tailor it as those three, I think that everyone that listens to this will hit one of those three buckets.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to, the general person. So they may or may not even have a gym membership. Yeah. They're listening to this because they're interested in whatever it is, flatter stomach, reducing inflammation around the stomach. They're interested in seeing their stomach, because that's what it is. It's, for some reason, we look in the mirror, and if we can't see our abdominals, we don't think we're healthy. And it's like an international marker for health, isn't it? I don't know why I bother with BMI or anything else. Just the doctor should just say, shows your stomach. No, keep going.
Let's talk about that first, because if you look at a lot of the people that do get abs, if it's done in a specific way where we're talking like physique and things like that, some of the people that don't do it the best way, some of the most unhealthy people on the planet, even though they have abs, right? So when we start to boil it down and show people exactly what it's going to take to get a set of abs, it's like their expectation changes then.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people come into the gym, or they start to get that thing about getting healthy and, right, I'm going to get my abs and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And when they come and seek out professionals that actually lay out what it's going to take to do that, it's like, shit, I didn't think I'd have to do all that.
Yeah.
And then their expectation changes. So it's like, I'd be happy with just two jean sizes going down, or a couple of dress sizes going down. And I'm happy. I can go on holiday. I look okay on the beach. I feel more confident. And that's brilliant. Like, if people are happy with that, it's amazing, So it's not all about abs when you actually boil it down and see what you have to do to get there. But in terms of, and another thing with expectation is, people think that because they train 4 or 5 times a week, that's high activity. When you actually boil it down, I don't like to do calorie expenditure from weight training and all that type of stuff. I don't think you can't really, it's not accurate enough.
You just can't do it.
But if you actually boiled it down and looked at the amount of calories from a weight training session, it's not as much as people think it is. It's just not as much. Like maximum they're going to get is around 350-ish calories from a weight training session. So if they're not hitting, like you rightly said when we first started, was the step count. Like that's World Health Organization now. Like you should be, like they're saying, you should be doing these amount of steps per day to keep yourself healthy. And when you boil that down, you will pretty much burn more calories doing a step count than weight training, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a person that said, right, I'm going to start losing weight to start taking belly fat down, for example, I'm like, right, what activity are you doing every day? If you're not up and walking around every day, then we need to adjust calories around that. So we need to make sure you're eating the right amount of calories for the activity levels you're doing. That's the first step. If that isn't taken into consideration, then you're just wasting time on just guesswork.
Yeah, and that dispels the first or another related myth, which we'll probably do another show on, which is the do more, eat less theory.
Yeah.
You've just said straight out there, you got to have calories for what you're doing. So if you're doing more and eating less, you straight away giving yourself, not necessarily, that might be the long-term aim when you talk about calorie deficit. And I'm tiptoeing around the topic because it's not for today.
Yeah.
So why I'm like hesitating a little bit, but you've got to make sure that you've got to get that base level.
Yeah.
That basic level of need. And honestly, that's where a lot of people are going wrong. They're eating less and thrashing themselves every day and hit training every day, and it's just not needed.
Yeah. Is it like that's a whole bloody energy system, biochemistry, physiology talk right there, right? But
yeah,
even like if you think, like, I like to keep the deficit as minimal as possible if we can. Like I'm a fan of rapid fat loss as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of it, but it's done in a specific way. Like you said, if you're going to eat a lot less, you do a lot less.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be able to recover from, if you're going to train, the training has to be very low volume so you can recover from it. You're not doing HIIT sessions, you're not doing anything like that. And all you focus on is activity you can recover from that doesn't require you to be raising your heart rate maximally to warrant carbohydrate intake and just depleting yourself even more. So that's when the cravings are going to come up. That's when it gets a little bit haywire. So it's like, you still want a good deficit, but a one that you can, if you're going to do the activity, you can recover from.
Yeah.
But there's a specific time frame you would keep that up. So it's not like you're on that for 12 weeks, for example. It's like, for me, it's like 2 to 3 weeks max. Mm-hmm. And then we start to shift and bring your calories up, bring your volume up, and then we go from there.
And that's where we're at, isn't it? That person we've said there, they're getting the daily activity in there. What else comes with it then, Gav? Because this, let's just talk about our food for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there is that abs are made in the kitchen talk. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going to be to do with high amounts of inflammation, chronic poor dieting for many, many years of abuse. You still got the people that, and there are a lot of them out there, if I'm totally honest with you. And this isn't an awkward stab at people that just don't know, because we shouldn't presume they know, but they are miseducated on nutrition. A lot of people, they're still waking up and and saying fruit's good, I'll start with a pint of orange juice. Yeah. Because they're just going, fruit's healthy, I need it, I'll drink it, not even considering the sugar, not even considering it. So straight away.
So you've got a conundrum there as well, because it can be very good for you in a way, but then you've got the volume that they're going to have in terms of how easy it is to drink. Yes, there's sugar in it, but it's how easy it is to drink. There's no fiber in the orange juice to, one, slow any of the digestion down, for example, or slow the sugar responses, all that type of stuff. But it's very, very easy to drink, and it's not going to satisfy you for a long period. No. So odds are, if you're starting off like that, people can go into the blood sugar swings, all that type of stuff. When we break it down, insulin isn't the main driver of, like, high insulin stops fat loss or anything like that. It's just when you look at it as a general thing, it's like, if you have a pint of orange juice when you wake up, you're going to be hungry within an hour, potentially, for the most part. Some people might get away with it, but for the majority of people, they're going to go, I'm starving. Like, what else am I going to have in an hour? Right. So that's where it boils down to. So when we're looking at food and abs are made in the kitchen, the way and sometimes when I do, like, let's say, for example, I'll go back to rapid fat loss. The foundations that I build there are around whole food as much as possible, protein. So, like, you're teaching people how to keep themselves satisfied on lower calories. Mm-hmm. So if you've got that down, like your nutrition's pretty simple. So they know more protein is going to be beneficial for satiety. So to keep them fuller for longer. Vegetables are going to do that as well. So more fiber. So once you start building that foundation of it, when it comes to long-term food choices, they go, well, if I've got this foundation laid out, I can then start adding stuff on top of that. And then the foundation stays. It's like building a house. So that's the way I like to structure it. So if it's protein, vegetables, things like that first, people can still have, let's say, fun foods for the most part and still stay within a calorie deficit, because essentially if I'm taking food away, by default, I drop carbohydrates and fats for that matter, because people will demonize one of the two typically. But when you're looking at those two, they're basically both fuel. So if we're dropping both down a little bit, you're reducing the fuel intake. So that way your body's going to want to get the fuel from elsewhere, which is typically then body fat. So by default, if I take calories down, I'll reduce carbohydrates. By default, because I'm in a calorie deficit, I'll reduce inflammation anyway. But it's looking at what the person can go through first. It's like, what's their starting point and what can they manage?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing with, with that inflammation as well, that digestive phase, it starts with the sight, the smell, and then it goes through the chewing phase as the digestive system starts. And if that process doesn't happen, you're almost bypassing it. So you're not going to be helping your digestion status short, medium, or long term. You're just getting something in your stomach. You've got to go through that pre-digestive phase to get the right response through your nervous system to your brain, to then start to produce the chemicals and the hormones that's going to break down the food. And if
do you know one of the best things for digestive health? It's like people go with probiotics, all that type of stuff first, but probably the best thing to do is chew your food.
Just chew food. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So if you're looking at, there's a study done where like the amount of chews you would do in a meal, right? When you're eating your food. And this was done at ad libitum as well. So people could just go and eat whatever amount of calories they wanted per day, I believe. And there was a group that ate, I think on average, it was like 12 chews per bite. There's another group that did around 40. I might be wrong on that, so don't quote me on it, but it was much higher than the 12. And just ad libitum, the people that did more bites ate 15% less calories over the day.
Yeah.
I think it was 10 to 15% less calories. So typically, if I set somebody up on a diet, or let's say you set somebody up on a diet, what type of percentage calorie deficit would you give them, which is a pretty good, decent one to start with? 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
So you're in control of that already without even thinking about it, just by chewing your food. So what happens the more you chew, like you rightly said, the chewing effect allows the time for the satiety hormones. Is one called CCK, cholecystokinin, fancy word, doesn't really matter. But that comes up and signals to the brain that, okay, I'm full. So that's one of the satiety hormones. So the more you chew, the more you start to release that.
Yeah.
So one of the best things for calories and digestive health is just chewing your food. So sitting down, chilling out, and just chew.
So going back to my abs class then, 120 people walk in. they get themselves a mat. I say, lay yourself down. We're going to spend the next hour pretend that we're going to chew our food and we're going to sleep for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
They'll probably end up with better abs at the end of that class than they would spending an hour doing sit-ups.
Yeah.
And we laugh about it, but that is actually true.
I'm telling you, and the funny thing as well is, like, if you look at the foods we eat today, especially when you're looking at processed foods and things like that, it's much easier to eat, right? So you're not chewing as much as we used to. And I've just literally finished a book called Breathe by James Nestor. So if anybody wants to read, like, it's all Wim Hof stuff going around at the moment, and I'm doing it myself. It's fantastic. It's helped me quite a bit. But if you read the book, it goes into the way the jaw is set, and because we're chewing less, the jaw is less sort of the strength has gone in the jaw.
Yeah.
And people's jaw lines are protruding a little bit, blah blah blah. But it's causing a dysfunction in the way they breathe. So it's more mouth breathing rather than nasal breathing. So that can I'm not saying it is, but that can be one of the factors for the certain types of breathing mechanics that people go through today. The more mouth breathing we do, the more stress hormones we produce. So nasal breathing will do more parasympathetic nervous system, and mouth breathing is more sympathetic, so it's more stress dominant. So just by strengthening the jaw, and some of the people in the book they referred to were giving people jaw strengthening exercises, making sure they chewed their food correctly, actually giving them chewing gum as well to strengthen the jaw.
Yeah.
And it helped their breathing pattern. They were obviously doing breathing techniques as well. And it started to offset a few things, and they started to lose weight better. They were obviously sleeping better, things like that as well.
Mm.
So
I can understand it. I can see it, because you're starting to see now the downside of the modern world. You know, everything's got to be express, everything's fast, it's got to be tomorrow. Or, you know, if you look at your phone, you want to order something, you're ordering it, it's there sometimes the same day. You know, I remember when I was living in China and they were demonstrating drone deliveries.
yeah,
So you could just literally go on your phone, order something off Alibaba over there, or, you know, because they don't use Amazon, and then a drone will deliver you whatever you want. I'm thinking, what? And I know that there are some places in this country, I know Milton Keynes do it, where they've got delivery boxes that are on remote control cars. They've got a camera on there, so it delivers at you. So I mean, it's a bit easier in Milton Keynes because everything's on a square grid reference. So it's going to work there and probably not around here. But it's only some areas, and it's definitely something we're going to. But the demand for instant is there, and that's probably why abs and core is something that people are searching a lot of, because they think it's something that you can do quickly. And what's interesting is already, you know, we're into this. We've talked about sort of the everyday. We've talked about chewing. We've talked about breathing, taking your time, making sure you're prepared to do it. There's one word, I even wrote it down because it's the most important one, which is happy. Because earlier on you said it's what you're willing to do and you're happy to do. You mentioned there, you gave an example of being on a beach, and you said, you know, if I'm on the beach and I'm happy that I'm feeling better, I'm looking better than I have, it's all about that self-esteem. And without taking us again into too deeper levels, but it needs to be said, is that the perception of what you look and what you feel like need to be aligned, because there's too many people putting filters on social media pictures and perceiving they want to look a certain way. And if they don't look like that, they're unhappy. And that's we've got to almost be happy with ourselves before we start looking for appreciation of others and judging how many likes you get on social media versus how, you know, the like that you're going to get looking in the mirror, because you've got to learn to do that. So that does put me in everyone's good books. What do you think?
Do you know what, mate? I do strategy calls with a lot of guys that come into the group, the online coaching group that I have. And when they put their application form in and, are you ready for this? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, I want a big chest. I want abs. I want to lose belly fat. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then we get on the call and I'm asking them, what's that going to give you? Why do you want those? Like, what's that going to do for your life if you have abs? And then we actually start to dig a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it'll give it, like, everybody's a bit more confident when they feel like, when they're looking better, they feel better. So the confidence is going to go up, right? When we actually dig deeper a little bit more, to be honest, a lot of these people want to save time when they train. They want to do less training and be more time efficient. So especially the clientele that I train is more guys around our age. They got families. They can't spend all day, every day in the gym like they used to. They want to be as athletic as they used to be and energized as they used to be. But more importantly, they want more time with their kids and their family, and they want a better sex life. Yeah. That's it. Abs isn't the real big thing. It's just they think that they need that to be healthy. Yeah. When all they want to do is have a little bit more energy, stay awake long enough to have sex in the evening, and that's it.
Yeah.
Honestly, that 9 times out of 10, when I dig deep in it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And and their relationships build better because they got more energy. The partners that they're with actually, because imagine, this has gone on the last 10 calls that I've done. My wife and I aren't having a good relationship at the moment. I'm so tired when we go to bed. We haven't had sex in however long, and she thinks I don't love her. Mm. And I'm just tired. I just want to go to sleep. But the natural response is to train more because you want to lose body fat.
Yeah.
In actual fact, if you're more honed in on your nutrition and doing the right things for that, if you're maximizing the training sessions you're doing, you can get better results with doing less.
Yeah.
Have more energy and have better relationships.
Yeah. It's that honesty piece. It's coming down to what do you want to do it for, really? Yeah. Because we know with all the experience we've got, the reason they come in with isn't the reason. So it doesn't make us counselors by any stretch of imagination. But what it does mean is that, you know, for someone that you want to invest money into in terms of a coach, if you don't have that relationship to begin with, then how are you ever going to get to this level of conversation where I can actually help you? And, you know, it's, as you know, I spend a lot of time with personal trainers and trying to help them and with their business. And the number one thing is rapport building, because if you don't have that ability to talk to them, it doesn't start at this, you know, it's not, you know, hi, what's your name? How's your sex life? That's not how the conversation goes. You know? but it does have to be a trust issue and an element of, look, you come to me, you want my help, I'm going to help you, but I need to understand all the elements first. And a good coach will know that, and be able to find ways to come to that common, you know, conclusion or denominator of what I can help you with, because that's how I set the goals. But
the thing like we first started with, and then it comes back to, is now you're laying out the expectation for them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now the expectation is set where if they're honest with their coach, it's like, I don't really want to train 5-6 days a week. I don't want to eat out of Tupperware. I don't want to have chicken and broccoli 5 times a day. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just not, especially in today's world where people want to, like, especially for me, I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to chill out on the weekends. We got movie nights, all that type of stuff. Like, I remember speaking to a person that took chicken and broccoli to a wedding in Tupperware because they were on it. Like, that's not right.
No,
that's not the way to do things.
No amount of, and it's no amount of research, doctors, scientific knowledge will ever prepare you for just realism. And I'm not saying that research isn't correct. It's the way we build our careers and knowledge. But this is why I get a bee in a bonnet when people, you know, I'll say do this, and someone will say, have you got a research paper for that? I don't need a research paper, because if you go to a wedding, go and enjoy yourself. You don't need to do a study on that. I mean, the stuff about chewing, you know, we can find out how many chews you could do, but can you imagine saying to somebody, I want you to count how many times you chew? The stress levels through the roof. Hold on a minute, don't talk to me. I'm just counting how many chews I've done. It's just not going to work.
So let's put it in the practical aspects.
Yeah.
What are you going to chew more of?
Everything.
What foods would typically would make you chew more?
Solid foods.
Exactly. So that's where you go, right? You're going to, ideally you want to be eating these types of proteins, these types of vegetables. Do you know what I mean? So you're not telling them to think about the foods, and this is where the coaching comes in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's all good saying stay in a calorie deficit and have all these fun foods and be flexible and all that stuff. But if the foundation isn't there, it's harder to stick to.
Of course it is.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a rant from Abs anyway.
It was massive. But I tell you what, we're going to move it on a little bit, not because the other points aren't important. And if anyone wants us to go into any of the things we've said in greater detail or do separate shows, we are open to all feedback and suggestions. It's absolutely no problem. But one of the things that I want to answer, because it frustrates me when I listen to a podcast that's got a title and they don't actually answer the question.
Yep.
I just want to spend a bit of time on actual exercise.
Yep.
And those people that do exercise regularly, that listen to this because they are fitness enthusiasts or even work within the industry. So there's still got to be a space for how many or what do I do? You know, let's just talk about the actual practical elements of exercise for the stomach.
Okie doke. So people tend to do, like, you see a lot of ab circuits and 6-minute ab routines and all this type of stuff. But in my experience, if you look at like activation on EMG studies on abs, some of the highest EMG studies come on things like chins and front squats.
Yeah. So
you will really work the abs on those. Now, not everybody can do those exercises really, really well, or especially if you're looking to lose a lot of weight, you might not be able to do a chin up. So that's out of the question. But what people typically don't tend to do is, one, they, like everything, you need to start with good technique, high repetitions initially just to build that technique up. So you get in the right blood flow to the area, because that's one thing. If you touch a body part on any part of your body, for example, and it's cold, you'll typically have more fat on that area. So let's say it's on your hamstrings and your glutes. Typically that area is pretty cold. So if you can start to get more muscular contractions around there, you'll drive more blood flow, which then you can take fatty acids away from there. So and then you can circulate it. It might get re-esterified elsewhere if you're on a deficit, but at least then there's things being mobilized from those areas. Yeah. So typically when you're looking at abs, you still need to do some direct ab work because you can contract them harder. So your typical like crunches, and I like things like reverse crunches, guard hammer raises. You want to hit as many areas as possible. Rotations are good as well, You have to look at what the person can do, right? So
Yeah.
bracing and things like that are going to help as well, especially when you're looking at back pain and all those types of things. But people only typically use it with either time sets or high reps.
Yeah.
When the muscle can actually handle load as well. So if you're getting those muscles recruited with higher load, I'm not saying like a 1RM for a crunch or anything like that, but if you're adding load to it and doing more, lower reps as well, using tempos to really focus on contractions, and then topping that up with higher reps, so you can put them into circuits, but you've got a little system towards it as well.
Yeah.
You can hit it from very different angles.
Yeah,
you know?
no, definitely. You know, the latter part of that, what you mentioned, is sort of where I'm at with training. You know, I'm pretty sure that most people prefer to do a front squat than they would sit-ups, because you get less people complaining about doing a front squat than they do sit-ups. As soon as you get to sit-ups, you're getting neck pain. My head does this. I've strained this. I've done that. So I definitely think you're in probably a safer position to do that. But the main reason why I would look for, I'm going to classify it as core exercises. I'm into things like planks, glute bridges. One, because I've got a bit of a Pilates background of teaching that, but two, as well, I look at, play sport, but endurance running as well. I got a lot of people that say that, and I've dabbled in triathlon and things like that in the past. And I know that when you drive down the road and you see somebody running, I always look to see if I know them. But I'm also checking out their, what we call the gait analysis. I'm looking at how they're running, because you and I both trained in that. You can see, compensations in the muscular chain where they're overcompensating. But one of the things that you find, and what you see with sort of these people that want to do couch to 5K or local park runs, as soon as they've got weak cores to begin with, because the first thing that happens is the head goes down, the shoulders get hunched, and they're shutting everything down. So they're reducing the amount of movement in the body. So they're not able to mechanically move forwards as well. And they're closing down their ability to breathe.
Yep.
And when you see someone that's a good runner, the first thing you notice is their upright posture, they're breathing, they're swinging their arms, they've got a great leg stride. So even at a basic level, you can see someone that looks a more confident runner based on their posture. And that's why I say to a lot of people as well, if you can just get that fundamental core, like I said, a plank, yes, abs are great in terms of I can see a six pack, but let us use the F word here, functionally, if you're looking at it from that, whether it's doing a squat, going for a run, picking up your kids, playing five-a-side football, any of the activities that you want to do, if you don't have that starting point to begin with, bad back, pulling muscles, it's all coming there. So it's actually more of a safety mechanism, and they don't need overdoing. They just need a little bit of compensation work, a little bit of training, a few days a week. Doesn't take long. So when we talk about not having enough time, not knowing how to program, not knowing what to cook, there are still things, if I draw this back to the actual topic and right back to the beginning, there are things that we could all be doing, whether we're the beginning person that wants to just begin and get healthy, the person that wants to compete. It doesn't matter where you are. No one wants to be injured. No one wants to be injured.
100%.
This isn't about doing 10,000 sit-ups every day and all of a sudden you have a great six pack. This is about the realism of, we use the words health and fitness. Fitness is great, but if we don't focus on the health part, we're just not going to ever get to fitness. It doesn't matter what your goal is.
100%.
So I think I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that in a minute, Gav. We could talk about this literally for days and weeks and hours, couldn't we? Easily.
We could probably do a topic on core training and talk about how to train the back to help your core.
Yeah.
People forget about the posterior chain when you're thinking core as well. So like you said about running, you want to be upright. That'll stem from your feet. That'll be glutes, hamstrings, erectors, upper back. I've taken a few runners and helped them with their marathon training, that type of thing. And one thing they neglect is their posterior chain.
Yeah.
And they train their abs like religiously.
Yeah.
They'll do crunches, they'll do planks, they'll do all this and they'll do all that, but they can't maintain that upright posture.
Yeah.
And then typically the people that do this, like if they're not professional runners, they're at the desk all day. And we talked about breathing earlier on. So one thing, if you can't breathe correctly, especially through the diaphragm, you can't get as much oxygen in.
Can't get the air in.
So so what's going to deliver the fuel, especially that last part, and this is again physiology type stuff, that last part of ATP production is oxygen.
Yeah.
If you can't get enough oxygen in, you're not producing energy.
Yeah.
And that stems back to breathing.
Yeah.
So it's like there's loads of topics we could go into here, mate. But
well, that's why we're doing this, Gav. That's why we're doing this, because there are loads of topics and we want to talk about those topics as well. but we can't do them all in one show. And I think that what today's done is it's probably people came with one idea and they've left with probably 15 or 20. They came because the topic was abs and core, however you want to term it, but they've also gone away with other take homes, you know, activities, being proactive, takeaways from this, however you want to call it. They've got actions they can do off the back of listening to this conversation. And that's what this is all about, that you leave with something that you can do, not with a load of information that you just don't know what to do with.
Everyone's going to count their chews 45 times now. You know what I mean?
yeah. So if you could just keep a log of all your chews every meal and then send it to us on, that'd be great. But listen, thanks for your time, Gav. I think it's
awesome,
been a good episode today. And as always, anyone that's listening, if there's anything you want to go into a bit deeper or give us some topic suggestions, absolutely fine. And we'll hopefully have your ears ajarred to another conversation with us in the future.
Another mate. Can't wait.
Okay. Nice one, Gav.
Speak to you in a bit.